Hey everybody, what is going on? I am Maximus Rex. Yet again, this is Big Baby Reviews. Today we are looking at Wolverine issue 35, cover dated January 1990, because it is Tuesday and it is Mark Silvestri Day. So starting with the cover here, one thing I do want to mention is the various levels of homage, inspiration, swiping going on here. I've mentioned before how much I think at this period that Mark Silvestri is taken away from Mike Mignola, even though there's a John Buscema influence, it's always been there. It's kind of creeping in with the shadows and the kind of I call the tick lines here and the hatching. And I find this cover here has even more kind of a Mike Mignola feel, at least down here with these two guys, with the dark shadows and as well the simplification of the legs, the very kind of triangular shapes down here. All to me scream Mignola, and even here the face, the undershadow and everything here. Maybe slightly earlier Mignola from like 1987, 1988, but definitely that vibe here. And if you know, and you've listened to Mignola, he said he's picked up a lot of stuff from Frazetta. So I feel like it's almost Silvestri doing Mignola, doing Frazetta, because the way this cover's laid out with the figure in the back and the mountain and, the various layers of depth, by, where the characters are placed. This definitely is a typical kind of Frank Frazetta composition that we're seeing here. And all this done by Mark Silvestri, who, I think is a sound artist and who can also be kind of a chameleon. So again, when we look through these pages, I want to mention that Mike Mignola influence, that John Buscema influence is what we're going to see here. And later on, when we get to Cyberforce and stuff, then you're going to start to see that Jim Lee influence creep into his style. But at this point, like I said, Mike Mignola, John Buscema equals kind of this cool looking Mark Silvestri style. So let's break this one open, have a look inside. So we're starting off at some sort of biker bar in Canada, Vancouver, British Columbia. I don't know exactly where in Vancouver this would be. I've been to Vancouver, definitely on the far out outskirts of town. But it's a comic, that's fine. Credits: Larry Hama, script, Mark Silvestri, pencils, Dan Green, inks, Pat Brosseau lettering, and Glynis Oliver coloring. So our regular team will, at least art-wise. And it is fun once in a while to get a colored issue in between the ones I'm missing that we go with the Wolverine Essentials with the black and white. So mysterious figure over here, some smoke, right? Just this clever use of smoke to break the silhouette from the black back here, right? So smart. And again, with Mark Silvestri, look at like the feel of it and how quickly it looks like everything's being put down, but it's so effective. This character in the foreground falling down like that, like that's great. Like everything works, the anatomy, it's very illustrative. This I would say is quite a John Buscema kind of setup page, first page. And here we see Puck, not in uniform, so you would have to know who he is to know who he is here. I'm just pointing that out because I do like just a panel like this, right? Setting the tone in this bar here, the lighting, the different layers again, the biker guys, like it's just so quickly done, but such great storytelling. This is kind of like a Western panel, almost is what I'd call it. You would definitely see this in Western comics from the 50s, 60s. So here's, an example of what I would say is Mark Silvestri channeling John Buscema for Wolverine's face here. But he's definitely starting to come into his own here. And what I recognize is that Mark Silvestri style that I really enjoy. It probably, he probably pulls it together in the next few issues, and then it lasts for about like 10, 12 issues. And the first few issues of Cyberforce is my personal sweet spot when we talk about Mark Silvestri. Again, he's a master storyteller, right? And using, in this case, the old school analog style of art, black and white ink, right? Either white or black. And he's really good at it, really adept. So this is Lady Deathstrike. She continues that trope of, Wolverine villains for some reason having to have some sort of claw theme or some sort of cutting implement, right? There's a few there. Obviously Sabretooth, he's, I'm not going to rag on Sabretooth. He's pretty cool as Wolverine's Joker, if you will. But, Lady Deathstrike gets a little weird with the elongated fingers. And who's that other character? I forget if his name is Razorback. He's from the early Marvel Comics Presents, and he's just got like two nubs with spikes or swords hanging out or popping out of the end of his wrist, what would be his wrist. Like, that character is ridiculous. You know, so they definitely went through a gamut of blade themed villains, and it got old pretty fast with Wolverine. So here's some more of the Mignola influence, I think. The shadows. You got the same kind of shadows here. So Wolverine showing off how tough he is by stabbing himself through the arm and pinning the table to his arm with that knife. Scare off these biker dudes. Don't forget, this is, you know, maybe a little bit overblown, but this is pre-Hugh Jackman Wolverine as well. Wolverine was meant to kind of look a bit older. He was, you know, they always kind of said he was in, maybe looked like he was in his 40s, early 50s or something like that, right? So I think that's, you know, being represented in the way Mark Silvestri is drawing him. I forget this character's name, but he'll become pretty quickly in the story important. I think the name comes up, so when we get there. But he basically is a teleporter, and is going to teleport Wolverine to another time, right? Based on this picture here, it seems. And I thought it was kind of an interesting little detail where they're looking at this picture. That's the great writer himself at the table. So from what I can gather, they're kind of inferring that this is Ernest Hemingway, right? And it's gonna be another clue later. But I think, you know, in comics they like to introduce characters but not name them outright for copyright maybe reasons or trademarks or something like that. You know, it just helps to avoid those kinds of issues. So without ever coming out and just naming him outright, it's hinted at, right? So that's the first hint there. That's the great writer. So where's our friend here, the teleporter? When does he come into play? Yeah, so right here. He somehow teleports he teleports Lady Deathstrike to Wolverine, and then somehow they're all teleported to what they don't know yet is Spain in like the 1930s. And there's our gentleman here, you know, the great writer. And this lady, they're in Spain, so she calls him Ernesto. You could obviously, you know, push a little further and say that's probably definitely Ernest, right? And we're looking at this guy as probably being Ernest Hemingway. One of those hints. Puck, for some reason, is no longer a small person / midget, whatever's politically correct, so no one gets offended. I know that's a character thing, you know, back in the war or something. He was a normal sized human, and just kind of a ridiculous sequence here where he gets to be a bullfighter again. And Wolverine once again refers to this gentleman as Ernesto. So again, giving even more credence to the fact that the great writer is Ernest Hemingway. I enjoy when historical figures are inserted to comics like that. It's kind of clever. It's just this sequence with the bull I just don't really enjoy. But it is kind of symbolic, right? Because all of a sudden they start getting bombarded. If you know anything about World War II history, they figure out here that they are in Guernica in Spain, right? Which is basically a city that was attacked by the Nazis before the war. From what I can gather, you know, it was almost seen like as a dry run of practicing their blitzkrieg technique or strategy, I guess you could call it. And Picasso had actually, after this happened, one of his famous paintings is called La Guernica. You could look that up on Google, and it's a representation, you know, Picasso's version of what happened that day. And because they're from the past, they actually mention it. Sure don't look like the way Picasso painted it. So I will say this for Larry Hama, he's thrown in stuff like history and art history that, you know, as a kid would have probably gone way over my head. But I'm kind of enjoying the references here since I know a little bit about that art history there. And of course, Ernest is Pablo. Why would he paint Guernica? He's still having a great time in Paris, hanging out with Gertie and Alice. So, you know, I guess the event has just happened historically, so obviously Picasso has not had time to paint his famous painting yet. Some more aerial attacks. Some deadline pages, quickly drawn. Not that they're bad in any kind of storytelling sense, but yeah, these are pages where, you know, silhouettes and stuff. You got to get these moving out and we are edging our way towards the end of the story anyways. But just, again, great storytelling from Silvestri. Simple, effective style. And again, if you look at his ladies, he's slowly starting to morph into the Marc Silvestri that I learned to appreciate just a few years after this. So Lady Deathstrike finally realizes where she is, and I guess she somehow meets up with these Nazis that just attacked La Guernica in Spain. And again, masterful composition here, foreground element here, almost a silhouette. Simple but effective, all these Nazis here. And again, definitely, to me, a huge Mignola influence with all of this here. Well, there you have it. Tell me if you agree or disagree with my Mike Mignola, John Buscema inspiration for this run of Wolverine by Marc Silvestri. If you enjoyed the commentary, please say so below. Leave your comments, your questions. Feel free to do so. Please like and subscribe because that helps us make more of these and keep it coming. So everyone out there, thank you for watching and have an excellent day.
Like! Subscribe! Like! Subscribe!
King Comics presents Big Baby, Volume 1, Issues 1 to 13, 204 pages of story and art. King Comics also presents Star Crasher one-shot, 32 pages, cosmic sci-fi surrealist adventure. You can find these fine comics at KingComics.CA, at MaximusRex13 on Instagram, or on Facebook, MaxRex or Big Baby.